Hi there, my name is Sophie B. Hawkins, and I'm going to be reading an original writing for This Way Out, and then I'm going to read Mrs. Dalloway, a little part from it. Okay, this is called Not Beating Around the Bush. My mother's book represented a time when I hoped she would leave my father for her female lover, when I empathized more with her breakaway than his need for her. That would have made me feel guilty, because I had an equal and opposite need to take care of my father, rejected as he was, by my mother. The book meant herself, the work she had been doing doggedly for incalculable years. Fueled by pain, humbled by self-discovery, the pages were seared like moth wings by fame's fire. Underwater was published in 1974. I knew the day it was going to happen. Eating peanut butter and jelly in front of Lost in Space, I knew, even before she got to the door, that she would burst in and say, "They're publishing my book!" It was the happiest day of my childhood life. I had watched my mother open envelopes from publishing houses for years, cry over rejections, bellow and hungover rants at the kitchen table, and rip the New York Times in a jealous rage about the best-selling author. And then I watched her go to work for 5 hours every day. She was answerable to no one, certainly not one of her children, but I understood without question why. Soon came the time she wanted me to read it, that craving she had for recognition. I was too young, though the correct age to groom a child to be your champion is never. The love scenes were ribald, raw, realistic. I was disgusted. I wasn't yet in puberty, and I did know more about sex than I should have, but the positions of my mother's female characters assaulted the friendships I imagined were her own love affairs. I had a romantic vision of love between women that was not at all pornographic. I was just too young. I never wanted to be a lesbian like the ones in her book. I never wanted to be a lesbian. 10 years later, 10 lifetimes in a child's existence, I opened those shocking pages. Was I now willing to associate being with a woman as a privilege rather than a sentence? Or was I high on the freedom of not looking for approval from the man who had the power to destroy me? Maybe going to my mother's book as a how-to for lesbian sex, when Michelle finally got me to bed at age 20, was just going straight to it, straight to the source, not beating around the bush. Michelle approached me at the bar on 125th Street in Broadway, having watched my set with the Pink Men, a trio in which I played drums. I felt at once, she recognizes me, and she is mistaken. I had just left a 6-year relationship with my drum teacher. I was a percussion major at the Manhattan School of Music, and I was writing songs that I sang from behind my orange drum set. "We're giving her singing lessons," Del Pedro, the band leader, would toot as he introduced me. I was relieved, actually, that he set the bar so low. I didn't intend to be a singer, and I believed my songs could carry me, regardless of my voice. "I like your songs," Michelle said, a tall tree and me a blade of grass. I bowed my head in the shadow of her magnificent branches. I would have to tell her I don't have time to talk, not because she was so intimidating, but because I had relinquished small talk when I was 14, reading Virginia Woolf. And I realized I had to become an artist, and my path was music. At that age, I threw my voluminous eggs into the basket of African drums and the man who had become my teacher. Now I had left him on his knees, which felt like tearing half my body off, ripping my soul in two. I had thought I'd love him and only him until I died. I couldn't imagine parting from this man, and when I did, it's because I was dying. I had grown as much as I could grow, and I was withering in that soil. I had taken all I could take, given all I could give, become all I wanted to become under his wing, a jazz vibraphonist, an African drummer, a classical percussion student, a child woman, and a gray ghost. I looked in his mirror and saw a dead girl whom existed only in notes and strokes. I had lost my wind. My throat had collapsed. I fled. Michelle sat down. "Really, your songs are great," she said. "She thinks I like women because I play the drums." I thought, I have to tell her I don't. And I have to get back on stage behind my drum set. She told me she was an English lit major at Barnard, dexterously inveigling herself into my mind as the writer from Boston. She got my number. I knew she was gay, or pretending to be. I knew she liked my pink sweatpants, my t-shirt, my independence. I knew she'd call, but I hoped she wouldn't. Relentlessly, she called. I took a walk with her in Central Park, found out she loved Whitney Houston, had lots of friends her age, took her sanity for granted, couldn't listen to anything over a minute and a half, and wanted to hold my hand. I wouldn't let her. I wasn't sure I liked her. She was so young, 18, and so full of herself, or the idea of herself, which was impressive, though not compelling. She did have amazing eyes, brown stones that squinted at the horizon, glistening beneath a receding ocean wave. But she wasn't funny. "I'm not a lesbian," I told her over the phone. It was true, I had never been with a woman, and the thought of being with a woman brought back a rash of humiliating images from my mother's book. Those tortured characters, or was it my mother? Shame, guilt, but also courage, exploration, excruciating vulnerability. "Nope, I'm not a lesbian," I said. As I hung up the phone, I heard a faint, "I love you." What? Did she say she loved me? Hold on, did she mean that? Did she even say it? I had already hung up. I sat in the hallway between rooms wrapped in a red phone cord. I was between times, between lives. Did a woman just say she loved me? It was gone. I heard the faint echo of her voice, which I realized I hadn't recorded in my mind until now. I rejected her, and I was lost. Michelle sat next to me on the couch, telling me she was leaving for Paris to model. What a relief she'll be gone, I thought. I've come this far, but the road is closed, and I can return to my drums and my songs and my cozy release from the ancient lover who robbed 6 years of my childhood. Suddenly she pushed me down my back. I felt 2 soft boobs on mine. What the hell was going on? Her languid torso and limbs completely covered me without trapping me. Hot springs on a cool night. She knew how good she felt, as her whole being articulated something so profoundly deep for a female. Love this. Her gene pool said, enjoy this. 2 boobs on mine, soft and alive, a sensual pressing into me, exploring but no focus on a penis, rather a spread out stimulation. All cells had taste buds, no end, no beginning, an environment of luxurious lasting, like swimming in water from another planet. I was bathing in pleasure. I don't remember her kissing me, and probably that's because I wouldn't go that far. Kissing is for love. By the time I opened my mother's book for research on the edge of the bed, we were both unsure and terrified. Or perhaps she had become squeamish, as I had when I was a child. She left for Paris. I remember thinking I was going to write really great songs now. A lock had been broken. I wanted to know how I really felt, beyond need, beyond striving. At 20 years old, I realized that gender is a tool, and if you throw out the manual, it can be used to make so many experiences and connections. My African drum teacher was a man, a much older man, but he was also the mother I was looking for at times. Michelle was a teenage boy, in her way, playing at everything, intending no harm. The perfect person doesn't exist, except in fantasy. And on TV, Gentleman Jack comes to mind. The creation of over 2 centuries' work and 3 brilliant women, Anne Lister, Sally Wainwright, and Saran Jones. Not to mention the women behind the women, Helena Whitbread et al. The work never ends. The love never ends. It just gets deeper, At 14, sitting on a rock in Riverside Park, reading To the Lighthouse, Virginia Woolf inveigled herself into my destiny. I coined the word omnisexual in a 1992 article in the New York Times while describing my sexuality to John Perellis because he asked. Your gender doesn't define my sexuality, I explained. We are creative beings, and I reserve the right to evolve my whole life. Love the person, explore the gender. Love the gender, explore the person. Years later, Nicole Kidman used the word omnisexual to describe Virginia Woolf while shooting Michael Cunningham's The Hours, based on Mrs. Dalloway. My brilliant, tortured mother created me, and beautiful, benign Michelle freed me from my mother's shame. Now I'd like to read a passage from Mrs. Dalloway by Virginia Woolf, because, damn, I wish I was her lover. Yet, she could not resist sometimes yielding to the charm of a woman, not a girl, of a woman confessing, as to her they often did, some scrape, some folly. And whether it was pity, whether beauty, or that she was older, or some accident like a faint scent, or a violin next door, so strange is the power of sounds at certain moments. She did undoubtedly feel what men felt, only for a moment, but it was enough. It was a sudden revelation, a tinge like a blush, which one tried to check, and then, as it spread, one yielded to its expansion and rushed to the farthest verge, and there quivered and felt the world come closer, swollen with some astonishing significance, some pressure of rapture, which split its skin and gushed and poured with an extraordinary alleviation over the cracks and sores. Then, for that moment, she had seen an illumination, a match burning in a crocus, an inner meaning almost expressed. But the clothes withdrew, the heart softened. It was over. The moment. I'm Sophie B. Hawkins for This Way Out.